Hey everyone, this is Caro from Shuffle Dating Podcast. We are back with a very special guest. Hi Ali, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm good, getting out of bed with a cold, but I'm great. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I really appreciate it. For people who don't know you and people who want to know you, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
I'm Alli Goldberg, and I'm a comedian, and my background has been creating live shows, and I've been doing that for many, many years. And the show that I am currently working on is a comedy dating show that I created. It's a live show, it's a live experience. It's called Love Isn't Blind, and it's a dating show where the men can't speak.
Oh wow. Can we keep it can we keep it for the rest of the life so they can speak ever?
You know? Sometimes men should be seen but not heard. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how did you start this? Because I have seen the videos and they are really good. So
Well, a few things. So, first of all, post pandemic, I just wanted to create something rowdy where people were meeting each other. I feel like we have such screen fatigue, and I just love live events. I love live theater. I love live comedy and just getting huge groups of people together. So, I wanted to create something rowdy, and I think dating lends itself to that, even if you're taken. So, the singles hate to hear this, but I have a lot of couples who come to the shows and regulars who are in relationships who come to the show. And if you're in a relationship, you get a red wristband. If you're single, you get green. We also have yellow if you're in a situationship, you're confused, although I encourage you to make a choice by the end of the night. We have poly purple, we have bisexual blue, we have pride wristbands, we have everything. So people of all, stripes are coming to see the show. But the second reason I created the show was that, unfortunately, my girlfriends and I would sit around and bitch about how we'd go on dates where men would just talk about themselves the entire time and not ask us a single question. And I thought, what if men stop talking? But I do want to say that the show is not a roast show. I joke that it's more of a toast show than a roast show. Like, the men who apply to do this show are here for the feminist joke, and they tend to be pretty great men. And running the show has actually made me infinitely more positive about dating because I'm constantly meeting great men and women. I'm meeting singles all the time.
I think that's a common idea because on our last episode we also introduced Liberty. She's doing this series on TikTok that is like going on 50 first dates, and she has said the same thing. Getting out there makes you actually see that there are good guys out there. Like there are decent people.
When I was dating for myself, it was very negative. And I was actually kind of worried about creating a dating show because I was so jaded about dating. But I find that there's something really refreshing about interviewing men but you're not on a date with them. Like, I'm interviewing them about their dating lives, but it's not for me. There's something that's really interesting and fascinating about that. I personally love when I ask men about their type and they describe the opposite of me. I love it because it's so, I wish everyone had that experience because now it's so easy to depersonalize it. Like, if someone's not interested in me, that's fine. He might be interested in tall introverted women. You know what I mean? I'm loud and small and extroverted. Like, it just is what it is, so it's actually very refreshing. And then I hear men speak very eloquently also about what they want and saying, I want someone who's passionate about what she does, or really family oriented. Like, they just say great things. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could also tell you a lot of horror stories through interviewing people for this show. But the other thing that's so interesting is I have horror stories from men and women, so it's like really leveled the playing field. Although I will say the male horror stories remain worse than the female ones.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I could talk all day about it. It's fascinating. Yeah.
I was going to ask about how do you apply for the show? Like, do you buy a ticket? Do you submit an application?
So anyone can come watch, and please do. But you can also apply to be a contestant. And so it asks you, there's a form on my website, loveisn'tblind.com, and it asks you some basic demographic data, and then it asks for a video. And if anyone out there listening is thinking about applying, I want to let you know the video, I see it, and I have a casting associate who's working with me who's wonderful. We're the only people who see it. So don't worry about making it beautiful. Don't do multiple takes. Certainly don't waste your time editing. Like, we just want to meet you. You can tell so much just from even like a 30-second video of someone saying, hi, I'm so-and-so. Here's what I do. Here's what I do for fun. Here's who I tend to date. Like, just trying to meet people. So you can apply yourself. You can also nominate your friends. So there's a
Oh,
separate form that says nominate a friend. So please go nominate all your single friends. And then the casting person that I recently hired, who's been so helpful, she goes and she finds interesting people in each city that I go to. Because I'm taking the show across the country now. So it's a lot of work trying to find good singles. And I really want it to be a show for like smart, nice, interesting people. I don't want it to be sort of your typical reality kind of dating show. I don't want a bunch of influencers, so, and I want to make real matches ideally. My match, well, actually, well, it was sort of some things went down on stage last Friday night, and he ended up being the runner-up, but the Bachelorette and the runner-up went out the next night, and then met up again on Sunday too. I'm pretty excited. They're like both into each other. It's really, I love it when I think the show's better when I do a better job making matches. The live performance is better too, because now there are stakes. The audience is invested. We want to know what's going to happen. So I love when the matches actually are pretty decent, but it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard to know people from a 30 minutes video, like a 30 seconds video.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and then I Zoom with them. Yeah. So you apply, and if I think you might be a good match for the show, we then have a 30-minute Zoom. It's funny that you stumbled over minutes versus seconds, because both were correct. 30-second video and then 30-minute Zoom. But yeah, because I'm trying to make real matches. I also keep the age ranges pretty tight. So I do have to meet the people and talk to them, and just, I live in LA, so I hate to say vibes, but I'm trying to get people with similar vibes. Because the thing is, dating is a high bar. I'm trying to meet it. But also there's a ton of friendships resulting from the show, and that makes me really happy. So if I can get kind of similar people up there, even if they don't date, they might become friends. And to me, that's a win as well.
Yeah, connections are very important. And we did the same in Shuffle. Like, a lot of people were asking for the friends button. And now we have a friends
I saw
button.
you post about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think people are realizing that maybe you cannot date them, but being friends is just as good.
Yeah. There's so many interesting studies about, a loneliness epidemic, and everybody's online. And I think everybody wants to get out and meet each other, even if it's just for friendship. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you feel about taking the event across the country? Like, how does
Oh,
it make you feel?
it's a dream, it's so fun. It's so fun. I love hosting the show. Like, I would host the show every night if I could, but it takes a lot of work to put on the show, because I am
Yeah.
trying to make decent matches. But yeah, it's a blast. I'm working my way up to doing it every weekend.
Oh, wow.
Casting is super integral. Like, I can't be doing this unless I have casting, which I do now, but also, like, if you're listening and you're remotely intrigued, please apply. It's also not as scary as it looks. Well, a few things, if you don't mind. First of all, I don't post anything without consent. I personally have a bit of a gripe with how people do all this man on the street stuff, and they just don't even ask for consent anymore, and we've normalized that, but I don't think that makes it right. So my contestants, after the show, I text them drafts of everything before it goes live, and unfortunately some of my favorite moments don't make it on. But I think a lot of people see my clips on social media, and they're like, oh no, I could never have this like sexual stuff about me on the internet. And it's like, where they worry that they're going to say or do something and it's going to immediately go online, and that's not actually how it works. And I'm not actually looking to throw anyone under the bus. Like, I want people on stage to feel like a little unsafe, a little risky, like what's going to happen. But my goal is to take care of everyone and score them lots of dates and make sure they have an amazing time.
Just to make them look good and
be happy. And that's why I'm vetting too. Like, I'm trying to not get fuckboys so that I can proudly talk you up, So like, if you're like a nice, smart dude with a job, like, go apply.
With a job. That's the bar. Just having a job.
I know. Well, it's funny because, like, in LA, that's a high bar. I take the show regularly to San Francisco, and like, everybody is a software engineer or a founder. And it's funny because the audience always groans when I bring out another software engineer, and then I always give them shit for it. I'm like, oh, are you sad that he has a great job with benefits? Like, what is going on here? Like, do you
With
know how hard
healthcare?
Yes. Oh my God, healthcare. Don't even get me started on healthcare. It sounds great. I paid $400 for mine to cover nothing. Anyway, but yeah, and I joke, like, of course, in LA, it's so hard, finding 4 men with jobs is wild. But yeah, so anyway, I've really gone off the rails here. But it's not as scary as it looks. So please apply or nominate your friends.
No, we have the same problem in Portland and Seattle. People complain that all the people there were software engineers. And like it was
Great,
very funny.
great. Bring me a software engineer, you know? Yeah, they all complain about it. And I'm like, you're spoiled. You are spoiled. You don't know how good you have it, Seattle and San Francisco. You're crushing it. All the men are smart. You throw a stone in San Francisco, the man has a PhD, okay? And it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I agree with that part. Um
Where are you
uh,
based?
oh, I'm in Ecuador. I don't live in the States.
Oh, you were in Ecuador. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll visit.
I haven't gone to neither a shuffle event or a Love is Blind, but maybe next summer I will make it to the States to actually go
Yeah,
to.
my Spanish isn't good enough to start doing Latin America. That would be great, but it's not good enough.
I mean, I don't know how good of a man can you find here, but sure, we can try.
Yeah.
So you have bet a lot of people. How do you feel about the biggest red flags that you have seen in men and women?
So I'll actually start with the women because it's a very simple one. It's not a red flag, but the number of women who we talk, what do you do? What do you like to do? Who are you? And then when I say, who do you tend to date? The first thing they say is, well, he needs to be tall. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous and women need to fucking get over themselves. It's absurd. And I always say you can buy a step stool, you cannot buy compassion. Like, I don't understand the obsession. And I've had women who are like, they reveal to me that they're 5'2". And I'm like, so he could be 5'6" and he's still 4 inches taller than you. And then they're like, oh, but my heels. And I'm like, are you a drag queen? Are you wearing 6-inch heels? Like, he's still taller. I just think it's ridiculous. And there's also a lot of, I'm not a dating expert. I'm a comedian who's running a dating show, but there's a lot of dating experts who talk about also just the math of wanting a man over 6 feet or whatever it is. Like, it's a small percentage of the population.
Yeah.
And they get picked off early. You know what I mean? So especially if you're over a certain age, there's no one left, you know. So women really need to get over themselves. Both men and women, this keeps happening lately. I feel like this didn't happen for a year. Lately, people have been telling me racial preferences, and I think it's weird. I think any racial preference is kind of weird. I guess I'm like racist, no? I mean, I guess it's a little different if you're like, I'm X and I prefer to date X, like the same thing, but I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Anytime someone says, oh, I tend to date this race or I tend not to date this race, I'm like, that's millions of people. Like, what are you fucking talking about? You know what I mean? Like, I could find you whatever race you tell me you don't date, I could go find you. We could go to the movie theater right now and we could find so many sexy men or women of that race. Like, I don't know what you're saying. But yeah, men and women have told me racial preferences lately. Do you have a racial preference? Is this what you're going to tell me? You have a racial preference?
No, not at all. I actually don't. I always make
you couldn't
fun.
tell me now, you know.
No, but I actually don't. In my group of friends, we make fun of it because we have a European, a British girl marry an Ecuadorian, an American marry a Colombian, and then one of my friends is Asian and she has only dated white dudes, and then I have dated all.
Good for you. But the real red flag is when people, usually men, but not always, when people really just lead with the physical, where I'm like, who do you date? And they go on and on really specifically about the physical, and I literally have to interrupt them and say, what about her personality? That is a red flag for me. And then another red flag is the number of when men don't want to date their own age. They specifically want to date younger. I think that is a red flag. Also, I'm not even saying you have to date older, but you're saying you won't date your same age. And I find there are a lot of men in their 40s who tell me, not a lot, but a couple men in their 40s who have said they don't want to date a woman over 35 because they still want biological children. And I say to them, fine, but just know that you are exercising your male privilege. That's what that is. And you are not a feminist. And they're always kind of stunned when I say that. And I'm like, look, the definition of privilege is that you have an easier time and more options because of the body that you were born into. So if you're telling me that you won't date over 35 because you still want biological children, but you are well over 35, You are exercising male privilege. You are saying because I'm a man, I have more options and I'll just date someone younger. And my own peers, who are otherwise my complete equals, except for the fact that they are women, don't have this option. It is the definition of male privilege. So if men want to do that, okay, but I want us to start calling it what it is, which is cool. You're exercising male privilege and you are not a feminist.
Oh, but that's interesting because, well, that comes all the way to this idea that after 35, you cannot have kids or you cannot have healthy kids. But now it's proven that that was just like.
Yeah, I mean, that's true too. You can have kids much older, but that seems to still be the number that is stuck in a lot of men's heads. And it also doesn't recognize the reality that a lot of fertility issues come from the man too after a certain age. So, yeah, men, we have stories of all these celebrities having kids at 60, but I just think it's a red flag. There are men who are mid 40s telling me they won't date over 35.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, we
Yeah.
have seen that too. Like, in Shuffle, people try to get into the younger groups when they are, like, much older.
Oh, my God.
And it's just like, what will you talk about? That's my point always. If you are, like, 20, 25, and then your partner is like 20 years older than you, what will you talk about? Like, what will be the conversation?
Like a mentor and he like teaching you things, but it's just, I just think it's interesting too, that no man wants to be the creepy older guy and then they do things and think that like they are the exception somehow. But I think also as a feminist, I think, women should, I don't know, it's tricky. But like, I also don't, if a way older man hits on me, I'm also just like, no, the women who are older than me should have you. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? To me, it's also just like, flat, no, you're not, you should be with an older lady deserves a shot,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also,
it's a weird,
older ladies don't want you. That's why you are hitting on like younger people.
Well, but also but sometimes, so I've had guys tell me, they're in their 40s and they're like, oh, I date in my 20s. Because I'll tell them like, oh, you're not eligible for this upcoming show. They're in their 20s. And I'll be like, that's fine. I'm like, yeah, but you're not in her age range, bro. Like, my 28-year-old bachelorette doesn't want a 44-year-old man. And like, I want there to be nothing wrong with any of those ages. Like, and look, of course there are exceptions and circumstances where people meet out in the wild and they don't realize there's an age gap and they're an amazing couple. Of course that happens. But when people have it as their criteria, then it's a red flag to me.
No, definitely. So we have talked about the bad side. What is the good side? What is like a green flag that you have seen lately that you are like, oh, I hadn't thought about that?
Oh, there are so many green flags. I love what I was saying earlier. I love how often I'm Zooming with a guy and I say, what are you looking for in a woman? And then he just immediately rattles off this like very eloquent, lovely list about, emotional intelligence and, they don't have to do everything together, but if, having some shared interests and some separate interests, I don't know. I mean, sometimes they're like sort of basic things, but they're just stated really beautifully and you can tell the guy's like really thought about it. And I think it's wonderful. I'm trying to think of, there's one guy in particular recently that I'm having in my San Diego show this Friday. He was just so succinct and eloquent. And I was like, this is great. I love him. I want to have him in the show. Like I'm trying to remember what he said, but things about the way they view the world and their shared values and things like that. So a lot of people say really wonderful things about what they want and what they're looking for.
Do you think people have, like the good people have put more thought on what they are looking for lately, like from a year ago to now? Or it's just like people learn how to communicate better and now they know what to say?
It's been interesting because part of me thinks that as people get older, they get better at articulating this and knowing what they want. But I've also been really impressed by some very young people, some early 20s who have applied and have said really lovely things. And, I just think everyone's different. Like some people really have it figured out, even though they might only be, 23, they really do know what they want. And then it reminds me how many of my married friends met when we were in college when we were 18 years old, right? So like it is possible to be very young and know what you want or get very lucky and just find that thing. So I think my stereotype, my own prejudice and bias was that like older people would have it more figured out, but sometimes I think the younger people have it more figured out. I also just joke that like, we all learned calculus in high school. And I'm just like, why did they teach us calculus instead of communication? Like, I have never used sine and cosine in my whole life. And I never will at this point, but I communicate all day, every day,
I
And so I think
know.
a lot of people get into relationships and they don't necessarily have the tools and then they have to learn them together.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Like, I think communication is one of the key things that you need for any relationship, just not romantically, like with your family, with your friends. You need to know
Yeah.
how to communicate.
Any interpersonal encounter, any relationship at all of any kind. Yeah.
What happened after you pair people if they choose each other during the show?
So, okay, so I should also talk about the format of the show. So the first round is a
Mm-hmm.
yes or no round. The men can only do thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no. There's 4 men and there's 1 bachelorette. And it's an elimination style game show. So the second round, I have them do something crafty. I usually have them write like a poem about the dream date they're going to take her on. And then the next round, I call their moms live on stage. And the round after that, I search their phones. But again, if you're thinking of applying, you are allowed to tell me things that are off limits. Like if you're like, Allie, don't go in X, I will not touch it. I also don't search like work or finance as a rule. Just trying to like get a laugh and get out. But anyway, so the Bachelorette eliminates a man after rounds 2, 4, and 5. And she and the winning man are sent on an immediate date and they get 2 free drinks at the bar. But it's really just a chance for them to chat with each other. And I've started telling everyone behind the scenes, like, even if they seem to be really hitting it off, like, make sure your friends pull you away. You get to mingle, you get to talk to other people because the whole audience has just seen you do these shenanigans on stage and they now have an excuse to approach you, right? So
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, also everyone has a wristband based on their relationship status. So people are also really meeting in the audience. And
Mm-hmm.
some of my guys have told me that being runner-up is awesome because you do all the shenanigans and then you're released into an audience of singles. But yeah, and I actually have a few success stories from on stage, and then I have a couple that met in the audience the second time I ever did the show, and they're engaged.
Oh, wow. Are you
Yeah.
invited to the wedding?
We're acquaintances. They're lovely. I don't feel any need to be invited, so like it's totally fine if they hear this and they don't invite me. But so yeah, and I'm hoping that more result. I think it's just people are tired of swiping, and I think the other thing that's so bad about swiping is half the time you meet the person in person and you're like, oh, I would never even have given you my number in real life. So if
Mm-hmm.
you could just meet more singles in real life, you kind of skip all that nonsense and you can see if you're, vibing. Again,
Yeah.
I hate to say vibes, but
Oh,
yeah,
don't
so a lot of
worry.
people, yeah. So yeah, so people are meeting on stage and they're meeting in the audience too.
Oh, that's cool. So I saw a couple of videos of like you calling their moms and also going through their notes app.
Yeah.
What is the funniest thing you have ever found in like a notes app? Because when I saw that, I was like, okay, wait, I need to check my notes app, and like, there's
There are
nothing.
so
Like,
many. There's so many. There's so many things I have found. In notes specifically, I had one guy who wrote poems in his notes, and of course, all the women in the audience melted. 2 weeks ago in Chicago, I opened a guy's notes app, and he had instructions for a very elaborate handshake, which doesn't sound funny, but it was like so absurd. And I started calling out all the things. And then the contestant on stage points to someone in the audience, and I'm like, oh, he's here. The other half of the handshake is here. And so I made him get on stage and I made them do their handshake. But I've also, this past weekend in San Francisco, I searched a guy's Amazon purchases, and some of it is just like me getting lucky as a performer because I almost
mm-hmm.
didn't search his Amazon. I almost searched his Reddit, but instead I went to his Amazon purchases, and the first thing was the present that he had given the bachelorette on stage. Because I tell the men, I'm like, when you enter,
Mm-hmm.
like, there's no pressure, but some guys have started passing out roses and little gifts and stuff. And he gave her this like little stuffed teddy bear, but it was the first thing on the Amazon list, and it had arrived that day. So I was like, you're really cutting it close. But so that was there, and then right after that was Magnum condoms, but they weren't arriving till Thursday, so he's only partially prepared. But yeah, so it's really just kind of like, what do you get lucky, right? And then there was one time I
Yeah.
searched for guy's Audible to see what he'd listened, like any audiobooks he'd listened to, and he had just listened to She Comes First, so everybody started screaming about that. That round is tough though, because as a performer, you're like, I'm trying to suss out like, okay, what's their personality type? They've
Mm-hmm.
told me some other hobbies. What app are they probably most active on?
Mm-hmm.
Or where might I find something? I don't know. So like, if a guy reveals that he's kind of kinky, I might check and see if he has fields. If he says he plays like a lot of video games and he's that kind of guy, I'll go to his YouTube watch history. But it's a real gamble. But I found so many things. I'm trying to think of what else I have. Oh, also at my recent Chicago show, a guy, I went to his Instagram, and for the first time ever, I decided, let's go to that home search and see who the
Okay.
algorithm is. So not his feed, but like that page where it's all suggested reels. I was like, let's
Mm-hmm.
go to that and see who our algorithmic overlords think that he is. And it was
Mm-hmm.
100% cats. It was all cat videos. 100%. It was amazing. So then I just made a joke about like how, he loves to get that, we love a man who loves pussy, and then I'm out. But yeah, it was 100% cats. And I get men who are like good sports about it, and I ask them in our Zoom, like, how comfortable are you with all of this? Like, what am I allowed to
Mm-hmm.
do? Are there boundaries? Consent matters.
Oh God. Have you ever thought of doing it like, I mean, I would love to be sitting watching that. Like it sounds really fun. But have you thought about doing it like with gay couples or like
Yes.
LGBTQ?
So I have, yeah. So about less than a year in, actually, probably like 6 months into doing the show, I sent a newsletter out and I was like, hey, I'm ready to do queer iterations. Apply. No matter who you are, apply to do the show. And it was so
Mm-hmm.
interesting because 3 gay men applied and like 40 lesbians. And I was like, all right, we'll be doing shows for lesbians. So I did a lesbian version 1 year ago, and it was so fucking rowdy. And I think what was really kind of beautiful about it is it was like the community showing up for each other. And they were so excited. They were screaming for every contestant. It was so much fun. And then right before the show, I got a little nervous because it was like a little bit of a catch-22 where I want the show to be inclusive. I want to
Mm-hmm.
do queer iterations. I'm really kind of overdue to do some more. I've done it 3 times, I think. But anyway, it was a bit of a conundrum because I want it to be more inclusive, but now I'm a straight girl hosting queer shows. So
Yeah.
I created a little penalty for myself, like something they could do to me if I said any dumb straight girl shit. Because it's like, how do I,
Make
how
it
do I
safer
yeah,
and
exactly. And then the thing that was so beautiful is the number of people who came up to me after the lesbian ones that I did and said that they were just so happy because nobody does dating shows for lesbians, right? It's
mm-hmm.
always straight people, and of course, and I think there's like a big cultural fascination with gay men, and they like have their own culture, and they have RuPaul's Drag Race, and they have all these things. Not that lesbians don't, but I think even if you speak to lesbians, like it's not as big culturally, and so people came up to me and they were like, "Thank you for doing this." So I do need to do more. And it's funny because the whole gimmick of the show is the dating show where the men can't speak. But when I did a lesbian version, I was just like, and now we have no men at all, So that was pretty fun too. It was pretty fun to just have like no men on stage, which was also kind of wild because my background is theater, and I had this moment of just being like, oh, how often have I even been on stage where it's all women? I couldn't remember the last time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool. I mean, you could go see a show any night of the week in LA, and it's all men on stage. And things have gotten better, but especially historically, that's very true. The joke was that like maybe there was one woman on your improv team, right? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
men have really, yeah, they've really dominated a lot of fields. Breaking news, boop, 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 boop. Yep, they have. And so it was really fun to be on stage all women. Yeah, you're reminding me I need to get my act together and do more of those. But man, it's so much work to put the show together. And now my slight dilemma is now straight people are constantly applying, which then makes
Mm-hmm.
it easier to do more straight shows. But I really need to get back out there and do some more queer ones. Sorry, I'm talking your ear off, but I also did one once where the Bachelorette, I don't know what she technically identifies as, but she's like pansexual. She dates all types. And so it was amazing. So
Oh.
we were able to have like a transgender, a non-binary person was up there. I don't want to mislabel. I'm always so nervous about mislabeling anyone, but We had someone non-binary. We had 2 straight guys and a hot older lesbian. And so this bachelorette actually eliminated the 2 straight men first, and they were great sports, and then it was cool to see such like diversity on stage. Yeah.
Oh no, for sure. Like I think people learn a little bit more about queer community when they see it in like mainstream. So having like that show, do you have any clip on your Instagram? Or
I
like
do. If you scroll back, you can see the lesbian ones for sure. The other thing that was so sweet, and maybe this is a low bar and I shouldn't think this is sweet, but there were quite a few regulars who come to every single straight show who came to the lesbian one. And they were like, yeah, why would we miss it? And they were kind of like these bro-y dudes in particular that I'm thinking of. And I loved that they were like, yeah, we're here for the lesbian one. It was very sweet.
We're here to support everyone to find love. That's the...
Yeah, the show is the show, right? If there's male contestants, if there's female contestants, like the show is the show. And we come all the time, and we're coming to this one. So I really loved that was true. So yeah, I want everyone to feel welcome at any of them. Like I also have a growing number of LGBT audience members at my so-called straight shows. That's why I have pride wristbands, and so there's a growing number there as well.
That's so cool. Like I'm going to start saving, because between you and me trying to try shuffle, I might need to go to the States for at least a month to go to everything.
Yeah. You should come there. I mean, well, there's so much to do. You can't possibly see it all, but yeah, you should come. You should come. I mean, and I'm biased, but it's a really good time. The show.
No,
and
definitely.
States with problems though too. We're falling apart, but anyway.
I mean, isn't the world falling apart? Like everyone is like, yeah.
Yeah, but I really want to go visit Ecuador and see the Galapagos Islands before the world really falls apart. That's on my bucket list.
Oh yeah, you should definitely.
Have you been? You've been, right?
Yes, once. Because it's quite expensive even for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool with the tortoise and everything. And apparently, like February is mating season, so if you want to go and see tortoise finding love, you can actually go and see. Yeah, you can actually go and see that.
Well, as long as I'm doing this particular show, February is going to be a tough month for me to take a vacation.
I know.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I believe Valentine's Day is a thoroughly made up holiday, but I sell more tickets in February.
Oh no, for sure. We do as well. Actually, like it's one of our business night. That's interesting. Talking about dating. So what about your dating life?
I joke that I'm retired.
Oh wow. Like everyone else.
Yeah, it's funny because the show has made me more positive about dating. But in my own life, I don't know. A guy would have to be pretty fantastic at this point for me to rearrange anything else I'm doing. I'm either performing or rock climbing at all times. Actually, if he rock climbs, that would be really helpful.
I don't think it's that hard to find someone that rock climbs, but in rock climbs plus being amazing, that might be like the different thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I don't want to be negative about dating, but I've gone on so many bad dates personally that I don't think it makes sense anymore. Like it just one day I woke up and I was like, this is crazy.
So
why would I do this to myself?
Will you ever be the bachelorette of your own
No,
show?
Definitely not. People ask me that all the time, and I think that would be the cringiest thing in the whole world. To be like, and now it's my turn. Like, did I create this whole show so that I could be the bachelorette?
No, but if you find another host.
But also, I want to be synonymous with this show. I created this show. I produce it. I market it. It's my baby. I work on it full time. I would never, having someone else host would be insane to me because it'd be like giving away the best part. The reason I do everything is so that I can host.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
We will have to find we will have to find another show for you, Alli, to participate in.
Actually, there is another show where people pitch their friends, and it's here in LA, and they asked if I would like to be pitched, and I thought as a bit of a stunt, it could actually be very fun if I have some of my previous bachelorettes get together and pitch me.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think that could be a fun sort of twist, and the group who runs that show is really nice and helpful, and I feel like we could have some fun marketing that. But yeah, so I might do that. But they keep having shows when I'm out of town doing this show.
Yeah, like schedules are quite hard to match. finally, other things that you like to do, a part of like helping people find love, like a part of rock climbing, because apparently that's very popular in the US.
Yeah, it's
Um,
blown up. It's blown up. And it's funny because I want all my friends to love it and I also want it to be less crowded. But I'm addicted and it's funny because I still identify in my heart and soul as a theater dork. And so it's funny to me that I am so obsessed with rock climbing. Like it just doesn't add up with my entire life. But I love it. I love rock climbing. I'm rock climbing as often as I can, which to be honest isn't that often. I mean, it's at least 2 times a week. My minimum is I have to go 2 times a week. I wish I could go more, but I also love seeing shows. So I'm going to shows constantly. I'm putting on shows constantly and I love all kinds of weird shenanigans. Like if there's like a weird party, like I went to one of the best parties I've ever been to a month ago, 2 months ago. It was called Balenciaga and it was a balloon fashion show. And
oh
the
wow.
artistry was incredible. Like it was just wild and phenomenal and then turned into this giant dance party. So I'm always looking for weird events. I have a show on Friday in San Diego, and on Saturday I'm going to a party where everything is on wheels. The bar is on wheels, the DJ's on wheels, everything's on wheels. That actually reminds me that I want to go see if I can find a pair of wheelies. You remember those shoes from the
Yeah,
90s where you like press a button and the wheels pop out? I'm going to see if I can get them.
I think you can find them in eBay now for any size.
Yeah. I think they're on Amazon too. They're going to be
No.
arriving by tomorrow. Yeah.
You should find the ones with the wheelies and lights, so it will be cool.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. That's a really solid point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I never had them because in my country they only had it until certain size. So my sister had them. I just didn't. I was too grown up when they came here. So it's so
I will have them this weekend.
that's so cool. Okay, finally, just to finish before we end up without time, what will you recommend to people who haven't gone out on a date yet, or they are single and they are trying to get out there?
This is really biased, but I do feel like events like mine, even if it's not my show, are great because you can just watch. And like as the show progresses, you can decide if you want to continue just sitting back or if you want to participate a little bit or say hi to someone next to you. There's also this moment when the Bachelorette is deciding who to eliminate where I just play like a giant game of musical chairs. So, and I have found out that some singles said that that's how they met. You'll see them talking at the bar afterwards and that's how they met. So stuff where it's like you can dip your toe in, but I would also just say like, forget about dating and do the things you love and do the things you've always wanted to do, right? So if you've always wanted to try pottery, just go to a pottery class, sign up for a pottery class, sign up for things, events, activities, go to pickleball and you'll meet people there. I tried pickleball once and I hated it, but pickleball is a fucking scene here in LA. Like it has taken over the city. They're giant pickleball meetups. Tons of people are meeting there. So I think just get out there and live your life and do the things that you love doing.
That's a great advice, especially for someone who never leaves their house. But yeah.
No, you gotta get out of the house. Yeah, that's number one.
That's sad. Okay. Thank you so much, Alli, for coming to the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. I love talking to you. And I hope to be in one of your shows very soon.
I hope so too. Thank you for having me.